God of shelter and strength. How long it takes to recognize the truth and where my inner power has its source. All my independence, with its arrogance, stands up and stretches within me, trying to convince my trembling soul that I can conquer my troubles on my own. But the day of truth always comes when I finally yield to you, knowing you are steady, a steady stronghold, a refuge when times are tough. Thank you for offering me strength, for being the oak tree of comfort. Thank you for being the sturdy support when the limbs of my life are weak. Praise to you, eternal lean-to, for always being there for me. Continue to transform me with the power of your love. Have you ever been on a walk and come across these structures which the poem there refers to as lean-tos, these kind of temporary shelters that are erected either for animals to shelter under perhaps, or sometimes large enough for people to be able to shelter in as well. I remember many years ago, we were staying just on the borderlands, on the English side of the border, around the Chester area. And we decided that we wanted to spend a day walking in Snowdonia. So we set off very early and we drove across the border and spent some time there. And we decided on the spur of the moment, as you do, to climb Mount Snowdon in completely inappropriate footwear and not really equipped to do it. And several times as we were walking up the mountain, I noticed these lean-tos, these little shelters that were there, some for animals to take shelter when the elements are kind of building and raging around, some big enough for people to sit in perhaps and get some respite on the journey. I've seen them when I've been walking in the Lake District and more recently as well when I was on retreat down in Dartmoor. And, you know, the journey of life that we are on, whatever that looks like for you, has long periods of searching in it. There are periods of time where we spend searching for either what God has for us or the things in life that we value, that we're looking for, and a lot of time and energy goes into going on that journey. And journey is definitely a metaphor that's used a lot in life and in faith as well. But there are times on that journey, like with any journey, where we need time to stop, time to pause, time to reflect and to find shelter. And if we don't have those times, those places of shelter, those lean-tos, as it were, that we can have some respite on that journey, and then we tend to grow weary and become discouraged and lose heart. And the places that are lean-tos for us in our lives will look different for each one. It could be that lean-to is another person. You know, actually, my wife Bex, we've been married for 15 years this year, and my son, our son Leo, who is 6, they are a lean-to for me. They are a shelter for me. Last week I was it was very busy. I was doing some teaching at another conference on Zoom, and it was also my birthday, and I was really quite tired, and I was like, oh, I don't really want to celebrate my birthday. I was being a bit grumpy, as occasionally I can do. And we have a litter of puppies at home. This is the information I feel I should share with you as well, who are 5 weeks old. And I've had to be sleeping downstairs for a lot of the last 5 weeks to be around, so that if there's a problem with the puppies, I can respond. And I woke up on my birthday and Leo and Bex had put a trail of heart post-it notes from the bed that I was sleeping in, the mattress I was sleeping on, all the way through to where our dining table was, where they'd done a breakfast for me on my birthday. And there were 38 of these little heart post-its, which was the age I am, 38. And on each of them, they had written something that they love about me. And this was the trail that kind of took me through to my breakfast. And so they are a lean-to for me. They are a place of shelter for my weary and at times grumpy soul, to remind me of who I am to them, and therefore part of who I am for me as well. So it may well be that like me with them, a lean-to for you as a person. It might be a spouse or a family member or a close friend or colleague, whoever it is for you. It might be that it's a place, a physical place where you need to go at times to feel restored and rested and safe, whether that's your home or a particular part of the country that you're in. It might be a song that can be a place of refuge. For me, this year has been a challenging year, the last 12 months health-wise, some unexpected health problems. And there was a particular song that I listened to by an artist called Lucy Grimble. So if you haven't heard her, check her out. I'll put her details in the chat. And the song was a song called Goliath. And it was talking about how when we find ourselves face to face with these giants in our lives and it feels as though the battle's going to be lost, God can help us to overcome our Goliath. And that song for me, for a long time, for many weeks, I just listened to it every day in the car. And it was a shelter for me. It was a lean-to for me. It could be something in the creative world, the natural world, a sunrise, or walking in the forest, or whatever it is. We need those lean-tos in our lives, don't we? We need those places of shelter, places of safety, where we can draw strength from others and other places. But we also find, and particularly as those in ministry, that we are lean-tos. We are lean-tos for other people. We are places of shelter and places of safety for other people. And they are essential kind of structures in our lives, these lean-tos. When the elements are raging, when the storms are raging all around us, or even inside of us. But it's important to know as well that they aren't permanent places to live. That if we become, as it were, too dependent upon one thing and getting all of our strength and our energy from one thing or one person, perhaps, then we can find ourselves in an emotionally unhealthy place. But we all need people. And I hope that for you, that the people you have around you, whether that's your family, your friends, your colleagues, friends here in this conference, your association or denominational support structures, or the colleges, hopefully this is them as well. We all need people who will cheer us up and cheer us on. And I pray that you have those people in your lives. For me, I went through a time just before I moved to Bath. So we moved to Bath 7 years ago, over 7 years ago now. And before that, we were down in West Sussex, in quite a difficult place. There was a lot of difficult stuff going on in the church that we were in at the time. It was the first church that we'd come to out of college, naive, fresh-faced, believing that, all things were possible. And there was a lot of difficulty that we had to overcome in that first church. And it meant that towards the end of my time there, I actually had to take a few weeks out, just because I'd got quite low. I'd got quite depressed. And so I had a couple of weeks where I was signed off, needed to take some time just to recover. And during those few weeks, we actually went down to a church in Brighton called St. Peter's Church, which was a kind of offshoot of Holy Trinity Brompton. And For me, church and worship during that time was turning up at church and crying through pretty much the whole service, and then going forward and being prayed for at the end. And for weeks, that was church. You know, I couldn't get the words out of my mouth to sing without just breaking down and crying. I was just in a very low place. But that is such a precious time that I look back on now, because there was no mask, there was no pretense, there was no kind of walls that were up. It was just, Lord, I'm at the bottom, as it were. This is me, this is really authentically me. You're going to have to do something, and I had to lean on him. He was my lean-to, as it were. The psalmist might use a more familiar phrase, a shelter, a refuge. This was what God was in a very real and tangible way when the elements, as it were, inside were raging for me, that he was my shelter. And if we look at Jesus and his ministry, he had those lean-tos as well, didn't he? Those times where he had to withdraw to be on his own. So many times in the Gospels we're told that Jesus withdrew to a secluded place where he could be on his own and spend time with the Father. There were times where he withdrew with those closest around him to enjoy friendship and companionship, and I'm sure a lot of laughter and tears in those moments as well. There were physical places of shelter and refuge for Jesus. One of the most well-known, of course, is Bethany, where he spent time with Mary and Martha and Lazarus. It was a place that he returned to often when he was coming to Jerusalem and the area around. And of course, his Father, the relationship he has with his Father, is a place of shelter and refuge for him. And we too can know God as a shelter, as a refuge for us as well. But it's not always easy. And I alluded to this yesterday when I gave you that quote from Richard Rohr about vulnerability, that where he says only Christians would dare to call God a lamb and spend 2,000 years avoiding vulnerability. It's easy for us to try and avoid vulnerability because we live in a society that values independence and self-sufficiency so highly. It wears it as a badge of honor. And yet Jesus says in John's gospel, when he talks about being the true vine, remain in me. Apart from me, you can do not one thing, nothing. We are utterly dependent upon our Heavenly Father. We are utterly dependent upon the power of the Holy Spirit. We are utterly dependent and in need of a God who is our refuge and strength, a very present help in times of troubles. I want to read to you just a couple of short passages, and we're going to just have some time to reflect with another guided meditation together. But I want to read to you from Isaiah chapter 4, just two verses, Isaiah 4, 5 to 6. And this is what it says there. Then the Lord will create over the whole site of Mount Zion and over its places of assembly a cloud by day and smoke and the shining flame of fire by night. Indeed, over all the glory there will be a shelter. God creating a place of shelter for his people. And then the beginning of a well-known psalm, Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change, though the mountains shake in the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam. though the mountains tremble with its tumult. Whatever else is going on around for us on that journey of life, whether it's just that we need to take a moment to pause, to take stock of the journey that we've been on to this point, to rest, or whether it's that we need to take refuge from the elements, the things that are around, the roaring seas, the quaking mountains, the lashing rain, either outside us or within us. God is our shelter, our eternal lean-to, as the poem puts it. And I've seen there, I'll send a copy of the poem through for you. I read a cartoon that said recently, God, would you help me with this, but make it look like I did it all myself? God, would you help me with this, but make it look like I did it all by myself? You know, I might not have prayed that prayer out loud, but, you know, sometimes that's been my attitude, you know, my heart. But actually, there are so many times where I can't do any of it. You know, I utterly need God to step in and to be my shelter, to be my refuge, and to do what I cannot do. So over the next few days, you know, when you see shelters, you walk along and see a bus stop, or someone with an umbrella, or a lean-to, or an awning, or any of those kind of shelters, see that and think, what is a shelter in my life? And maybe give thanks to God that he is your shelter, but also for those people or places or circumstances that are a shelter for you. Just going to lead us in a guided meditation, which is just a way of prayerfully being aware of God's presence with us. And then I've got a song for us to listen to again, and then I'm going to pray, and we'll move on. So you can feel free to turn your screens off if you want to. The thing I struggle with Zoom is, as I said yesterday, I'm painfully aware that my own face is there, and that can be a big distraction for me. Hopefully it's not too much of a distraction for you. So if you want to turn your screens off, feel free to do that. And then we're just going to share in this time together. So just as we're into this time, might be helpful to you just to put yourself in a relaxed posture. Just become aware of the sensations in your body, or any discomfort that you might have. And just allow the peacefulness of the presence of God to enter into your whole being, but particularly those places of discomfort. And as that's a place for you physically, imagine that spiritually as well. Just allow yourself to be still, slow down. Perhaps breathe more deeply. I'd like to invite you to imagine that you are walking in a forest amid a thick grove of pine trees. The trees are standing tall and strong. You can smell that fantastic fragrance of pines as you meander through the forest. You look up amidst all this beauty and notice large dark clouds are gathering. It looks like rain, and it will soon be where you are. A few minutes later, cold, big raindrops begin to splatter on your head. You look around for shelter and notice a small thicket beneath the trees. It forms a kind of umbrella-like shelter, just large enough for you to stand inside of it. You hurry over and slip into this protected space. As soon as you move inside, the first thing you notice is that you feel wonderfully safe and secure. You're surprised at how soft the pine needles on the forest floor are in this sheltered space. The ground feels soft enough for you to lie down on. So you ease yourself onto the forest floor and lie down on your back. You are comforted by the gentleness of the fragrance, the pines beneath you. The ground is firm, yet the soft needles make it easy for your body to feel welcomed. Experience the comfort of the secure haven where you are. And as you lie there in serenity, the words of Psalm 61 float through your mind. For you, O God, are my refuge. You repeat these words to yourself. For you, O God, are my refuge. And the shelter that you found in the forest is like the sheltering refuge of God's loving care. Allow God's compassionate strength and shelter to embrace you. And as you do, give permission to any burdens or worries or concerns just to slip away. Let them go. Entrust them to the one who is your strength. Rest easy in the loving embrace of divine refuge. As quickly as the rain began, it eases. Stillness pervades the forest where you're resting. And so slowly you rise from your soft pine needle bed. You stretch your arms, lift your head upward and smell the gift of fresh rain. Then you walk out of that hallowed place, confident and reassured that you will always be able to find shelter and refuge in God's abiding love. You have the strength you need to continue with life's journey. Enjoy the blessing of what you have received. I'm just going to play a song for us as we just come out of this time to reflect on God as our shelter.
Great.
God who dwells within. God who is with us in good times and in bad. We turn our hearts again to you and proclaim, nothing can come between us and your love for us. Even if we are troubled or worried or being persecuted or lacking food or clothes, being threatened or even attacked, we can grow through difficult times because of this power of your love at work in our lives. For we are certain of this, neither life nor death, no angel, no prince, nothing that exists, nothing still to come, not any power, no height or depth, nor any created thing can come between us and your love, which has been made visible in Jesus. We lean upon you and we offer you our thanks. Amen.